to the third of my free online jazz piano tutorials. Today we'll look at the major 251 sequence and how to voice it using our Type A and B left-hand voicings. First, let's revise our Type A and B dominant voicings. Now, the reason why we're going to do this is just to reinforce our familiarity with the voicings, because we're going to use those as the basis of building the 251 sequence. In a previous tutorial, we looked at going round the cycle, being the cycle of fifths, which is ascending in perfect fourths. Now, there's a number of cycles. You could go up and down in half steps, up and down in whole steps, up and down in minor thirds, right up to tritones. But the one that we're using right now is ascending in perfect fourths. Now, remember in a previous tutorial that we talked about generic chord symbols. The generic chord symbols such as C7, F7, B flat 7, E flat 7, even though the voicings actually deliver something a little bit more fancy than that by introducing the 9th and the 13th. We'll find this principle will go right through the 251 sequence. We'll call a chord 2, we'll use a generic chord symbol for chord 2 and for chord 1 as well as chord 5, but there will be more interest introduced into that chord by the voicing that we use. And here we have the two types, type A or type B, assigned to those chord symbols. The type is in the little square boxes above the chord symbol. So C7, as we discussed in a previous tutorial, is type A, F7 type B, B flat 7 type A, E flat 7 type B, A flat 7 type A, D flat 7 type B, and then instead of alternating as it has been, when it goes from D flat 7 to F sharp 7, it retains the type. So we go from type B, D flat 7, to another type B, F sharp 7. After that, it continues to alternate right up until the time that we get to the G7, at which point it's a type A, and as it moves back to C7, which is also a type A, we can see that there are 2 points in this particular exercise where the types don't alternate. As we continue our study of voicings, the reasons for that will become apparent. Remember, in a previous tutorial, we looked at the structure of a C7 as a type A structure. So from the bottom up, that's flat 7, 9, 3, 13. Now, as you can see from this diagram, the lower component of the voicing, the flat 7 and the 9, are separated by being contained in a little box. And the upper component of the voicing, the 3 and the 13, is also separated as the upper component by being placed in a small box. Now let's look at the type B structure and revise that. As we can see from this diagram, the lower component of the type B structure consists of 3 and 13, and the upper component of the type B structure consists of flat 7, 9. Okay, now let's look at both the type A and the type B structure and add the arrows that show us how to invert a type A to become a type B, or a type B to become a type A. And now we see the reason for those little boxes. So if we take the upper component of type A and drop it below the lower component, we convert the type A into a type B, and the process can be reversed to convert a type B back into a type A. Okay, now we have the complete picture. We're looking at the type A and B dominant voicings and revising them. We're going round the cycle as an exercise to master these voicings. We can see that the generic chord symbols of C7, F7, B flat 7, E flat 7, and so on, right up to G7, have been assigned the two types, either A or B type. And then underneath that, we can see the diagrammatic representation of how we separate a type A or a type B into the upper and lower components, and how we simply fold them over or invert them to convert a type A into a type B, or going in reverse, converting a type B back into a type A. The major scale is the primary source of melody and harmony in major keys. We call it the parent scale because it gives birth to melodies and harmony. Let's look at the family of chords that make up the key of C major, the four-part or seventh chords that can be extracted from the C major scale. In the key of C major, the parent scale is the scale of C major. And from that scale we can extract not only melodies but scale tone chords, what's referred to as scale tone chords. We use Roman numerals, so we'll use the Roman numeral 1 to indicate chord 1. Take the first note of the scale, select every second note of the scale. That's chord 1. And its structure is major triad, half step 7. So it's not the default 7th, which is, as we looked at in a previous tutorial, the flat 7. We just call that C7. So we have to say something about that 7th to indicate that it's a half step 7. And what we say is MA. That's a C MA 7, C major 7. Then we go to chord 2, the second note of the scale, select every second note of the scale. Chord 2. And this is a minor triad with a whole step 7. So that's got the default 7th, but it's got a minor triad, so we have to put something in the chord symbol that indicates that it's not the default major triad. So what we put in the chord symbol is MI, so that becomes D MI 7, D minor 7. Chord 3, select every second note of the scale. Same structure as chord 2, minor triad, flat 7. So that's an E minor 7, E MI 7. Chord 4 is F MA 7, F major 7. It's the same structure, major triad, half step 7 as chord 1. Chord 5, select every second note of the scale, a G7. That's the chord structure that we were looking at voicing in previous tutorials. Major triad, whole step 7, G7. The whole step 7 is the default 7th. Chord 6, A minor 7, A MI 7 is the chord symbol. Same structure as chord 2 and chord 3. Chord 6, A minor 7. Chord 7 is quite unique in the system, as is chord 5. Chord 7, the way we name it is, if it had an F sharp in it, we'd call it a B minor 7. Minor triad, whole step 7. But because it has an F natural in it, we'll call it a B minor 7, flat 5. And they become the 7 chord family of harmony that defines a major key center. And to familiarize yourself with that, you can practice an exercise whereby you play the voicings in your left, or the root position chords in your left, and arpeggiate them in the right. Practice that in all 12 keys. And so on through all 12 keys until you can see each major key not sequentially as in a scale, but you can see the entire major key simultaneously. Key of C major, key of D flat major, not sequentially. Key of D major, key of E flat major, key of E major, key of F major, and so on through all 12 keys. Most of the jazz standard repertoire consists of the 2-5-1 chord sequence as the standard harmonic building block. 2 in the key of C major, 2, 5, 1. In the key of D flat major, 2, 5, 1. In the key of D major, 2, and so on through all 12 keys. Sometimes we encounter cut down versions like 2/5. Or in the key of D, that would be E minor 7, A7. In the key of G, that would be A minor 7, D7. In the key of F sharp, that would be G sharp minor 7, C sharp 7. The scale tone chords sound rather predictable in root position, so let's explore how to extend our A and B type dominant voicings to include chord 2 and chord 1. Now the 2-5-1 sequence has the 5 chord or the dominant chord voicing in the middle of that sequence. So we need to extend it backwards to get chord 2. So with G7, we're going to get the voicing for that, for the dominant voicing. We're going to extend it back to create a 2 minor 7 voicing. And then we're going to extend it forward to create a 1 chord voicing. And we're going to do that in the key of F. Okay, let's look at a C7 type A. C7 type A, as we worked out in a previous tutorial, is flat 7, 9, 3, 13. A more interesting way of voicing C7 in root position. That's what we'll use for a C7. Now we know that C7 resides quite naturally as chord 5 in the key of F major. Chord 5, C7. So what we're looking for is G minor 7 prior to the C7, and then after the C7 we're looking for F major 7. So let's go to that C7 voicing type A and find a way, a quick and easy way of just tweaking that to get our G minor 7. Here we go. C7, find the third, take it up a half step. There's your G minor 7 voicing. Let's play that with the root of the chord to anchor the sound. That's a bit more interesting than that. So, G minor 7, drop the 7th of G a half step and it goes back to being the 3rd of C. There's your C7. From there, everything down 1 scale degree. By that I mean the parent scale. So B flat goes to A, D goes to C, E goes to D, and A goes to G. Once again, don't worry about the fact that the actual content of the chord is a little richer than the generic chord symbol would suggest. So now our 2-5-1 in the key of F using type A voicings is this. Now let's apply that same process, that quick and easy process, to type B voicings. So let's look at a 2-5-1 in the key of G major. In root position, 2-5-1 D7. We've already got a voicing for D7. G major 7. Okay, let's look at our D7 voicing, which we might remember is a type B voicing. So from the bottom up, it's 3, 13, flat 7, 9. Using the same procedure as we did with the type A, take the 3rd of your 5 chord voicing, take it up a half step to go backwards to your A minor 7. There we have chord 2, type B, in the key of G. At that point, just drop that note back a half step to where it started. There's your D7. Then drop everything down 1 scale degree to get your G major 7. So we're in the key of G, the parent scale is G major. So the notes drop down to F sharp goes to E, B goes to A, C goes to B, and E goes to D. So our 2-5-1 type B package in the key of G is 2-5-1. as left-hand voicings. Now we can go through all the keys. The keys of C to F usually use type A, and the keys of F sharp to B usually use type B. So in the key of C, 251. Key of D flat. Key of D. Key of E flat. Key of E. Key of F. Key of F sharp. Type B, the first of our type Bs. Key of G. Key of A flat. Key of A. Key of B flat. Key of B. Now the reason for this is that to make the voicings fold over like that, to turn A into B or B into A, it keeps your entire AB voicing system with a major sixth above or below the middle C. That's the sweet spot, as we spoke about before. Keeping all your voicings in that range tends to stay out of the range of the bass, stay out of the way of the improvisation. Okay, let's apply these type A and type B 251 left-hand voicings to some jazz standard chords. And for that I'm going to take the first 8 bars of a Duke Ellington famous tune, Satin Doll. And the reason I've chosen this is because it uses mostly just 2/5 sequences. So that 251 harmonic building block has been cut down to 2/5s, and it goes the whole 8 bars before it even looks at a 1 chord. Okay, as you can see on the screen, these are the chords for the first 8 bars of Satin Doll. I'll now play them exactly as written. Okay, let's play those first 8 bars of Satin Doll, the chords, and voice them with the Type A&B voicings, but this time, rather than just have them static, like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, as written, I'll add a bit of rhythm to the left hand and improvise some lines with the right. So we have seen and heard how the Type A&B 251 voicings, the left-hand voicings, can deliver a pleasing and effective sound to jazz chord symbols. But there are times when you're not working with a bass player where if you continue to play with Type A&B voicings for any extended period of time, like this, after a while it sounds a little bit as though it has no anchor. It's sort of just floating around. Basically there's no root of the chord to anchor the harmony. So what we can do is use the root of the chord, play it prior to the voicing, and join it together with the sustain pedal. So for G7, root, voicing. Now that's a simple form of stride, and I go into stride in a much greater level of detail in my book, The Craft of Jazz Piano. But for the moment, let's just look at how it works at its most basic. So root, voicing, root, voicing. So we won't call it a root anymore, we'll call it a foundation. And the foundation can consist of the root of the chord, or it can consist of adding the root plus another note added, like the 5th or the 7th, or even the 10th. And it doesn't have to necessarily be foundation, voicing, foundation, voicing. It could be foundation, voicing, voicing, foundation. It can be a string of foundations. Voicing, voicing. So you can start to mix it up, and it sounds a little like this. Well, it's been great talking to you again, and thanks for tuning in. I hope this has been helpful. Remember, these tutorials only scratch the surface, and today's tutorial gives one usable formula for the voicing of the major 251 harmonic environment. These voicings can be the basis for much variation in our left-hand textures, and this subject is explored in much greater detail in my book, The Craft of Jazz Piano, which is available from me personally for $65 Australian dollars, with free delivery in the Perth, West Australian metro area. It's also available online from ProCopy in Perth and the Groove Warehouse in Canberra. Bye for now.